Namaste and good evening to all. We are now into the next session of the economics for finance. Let me introduce myself. I am Dr. Alice Manu Jacob. I was into economics teaching for the past 42 years. In fact, this study material consisting of 14 units, the entire study material is my humble contribution. And I'm thankful to ICAI for having given me the opportunity to contribute the study material. So I'm responsible for each word in this 500-page textbook. And as students, your feedback about the contents and the presentation of the book is very important. So please do give your feedback. The objective of the book is to acquaint you to the language of economics and just introduce, because economics is so huge, you just cannot learn it in 14 units. So our present plan during the 2.5 hours in which we'll be interacting, in the meantime, I must tell you that I'm really virtually proud to teach perhaps the most committed and brilliant set of chartered accountancy students. So our present plan is, I'm allotted 5 sessions and 9 units. That is chapter 2 and chapter 4. You are acquainted with chapter 2 and chapter 4. 4 units in chapter 2 and 5 units in chapter 4. So I think you are well aware of the time constraint. Each day we have to finish 2 units, and that is why a session will, I need to complete 2 units. So mostly I will be teaching you from the examination point of view, because you cannot go into depth, but I will try to make it as comprehensive as possible. And there are 2-3 things I would like to tell you. Please make sure that you are using the revised study material meant for May 2021 examination, because we have last year revised the entire study material, and so the contents of the material is definitely different from what it was before. Then regarding the PowerPoints, and I won't be using the PowerPoints, rather I would like to use the whiteboard instead of PowerPoints, but you will get the entire PowerPoints. You can download it. It is already shared. Now these PowerPoints, please, no need of reading now. You can read it immediately before the examination, because it's the gist of what we have learned. Then I have also prepared a question bank. I will be preparing for all the units a question bank which consists of all possible questions that can be asked. And you might have seen the textbook gives a number of questions, especially short answer questions, and the answers of the questions, hints to the answers are also given at the end of each unit. Please go through it, because we need to pass the examination, and that is our primary objective now, right? Then another thing I would like to tell you is, I presume that you have basic knowledge of economics, because either you have done it in foundation or you have done it in your BCom class. Okay, that is why the book is also written with the under the pretext that you have basic knowledge. Regarding answering questions, that live questions that come, I will be answering it. We have to come to an agreement. Every moment I look and I get a distraction. And so shall we make it 7 o'clock? I will answer the first set, and maybe after that 7:50 or so, I will answer the second, and 8:30. I don't mind continuing any number of hours, any half an hour I can definitely spare. And so that is the way we are answering. So welcome to the class. Then again, I've written market failure here. You will think why I did not write fiscal functions and I wrote market failure. Even though the structure of the book is like that, actually, fiscal functions can be easily learned or taught after finishing market failure. So that is the order actually, even though it is structured like that, it's not a mistake. It has to be structured like that. But once you study market failure, much of market failure also comes in fiscal functions. That's why I'll be teaching you market failure first. So we don't have much time. I like you to keep writing something if possible. Just scribble it down so that I have attention, because 2.5 hours you have to listen to one and the same person, and maybe you are coming after office, you are a little tired, but I'm definitely concerned about you. But only one objective: you are going to pass the examination. Okay, right? So you are going to pass the examination. Definitely, you're going to pass the examination. So we will cover from the examination point of view. So we'll start. You heard about market. Market. We know, for the science students, let me tell you, market is not a place. Market is the entire set of arrangements for production and sale of goods and services. So in economics, market is not a place. And what is market mechanism? That is, you have heard about the term neoliberalism. It's not in the textbook. What is neoliberalism? People supporting markets. Leave everything to demand and supply. Produce for people who demand. So let the market be supreme. The market will decide what to produce, how to produce, and for whom to produce. Everything will be decided by the market. So in the market, there are independent interaction pursuing my interest. So in the economics class, we have to be very, very clear about one thing. That is, their own self-interest. And you know, the capitalistic world, that is, people try to maximize their self-interest. I am selfish, I will try to maximize self-interest. Every single individual, ABCD up to N, they will try to maximize their self-interest. Producers will try to maximize profit. Consumers will try to maximize satisfaction. So my maximum plus the maximum of B plus the maximum of C plus etc. up to N maximizes a common good. That was the simple principle of capitalism. And so what is the role of government? Government can simply watch. Okay, the market is functioning. If it is not functioning properly, then maybe the government can put in a little bit of regulation. So what is it? Get out of the way. Let the government get out of the way and let free market function. And so the belief was markets are efficient. What is efficiency? It will produce what we want. And it will determine what is the market's function. It will determine the price. The price is decided by the forces of demand and supply. Some prices are higher, some prices are lower. And competitive markets. You know what is competitive markets? There are large number of producers. They compete each other. You know the toothpaste market. You know the market for different consumer goods. These people compete and provide us. I'm saying only theory. And markets are supposed to provide the best commodity. Definitely, I've lived so many years and I find that, quality of commodities produced is much, much better over the years. So they give you best output, best products at the lowest possible price. And the price system, this is a price system, price mechanism. It works efficiently. You know how? This price will give a signal to people. Okay. This price will give a signal to people how to use their land, labor, capital, and resources. So they will put their resources into the production of goods whose prices are higher. So price acts as a signal. I will tell you, why are you sitting in the CA class? Why did you choose to study CA class? There is an economic explanation for everything. Because the price of chartered accountants, it is a little rash to say that, but the price of chartered accountant is nothing but wages. So the wages of chartered accountants are high and people put their time, money, effort, okay, commitment, everything into CA. Why CA? Because the price, the market price has acted as a signal. So naturally, there will be efficient markets. Everything will be provided by markets. Our resources will be efficiently moving to those profitable things. And so market is good. That is the belief. But I'm going to introduce you certain things wherein you have to examine whether markets are actually efficient. Markets are efficient. Everything works properly. There is no deficiency. There is no excess production. People get what they want at the lowest possible price, the best quality products. If markets were efficient, I'm asking you a question. There would be no problem to face coronavirus or COVID problem. The market economies, which is a market economy, capitalist economy, that is more or less the US and capitalist economy, not socialist economy is not much prevalent now. The market economies, they were depending on market for healthcare. And understand the COVID-19 pandemic has produced a mass market failure. Did you get the term? Market failure. Market has failed. The private health services have failed. How do you know? There is shortage. Chaotic market. Personal PPE kits not available. Medical mask not available. Gloves not available. Oxygen not available. Training, people do not know. Nobody had put money into research for vaccines. Why? If the market was efficient, the private health providers would have definitely done all these PPE would have been available. Everything would have been available because market is supposed to work efficiently. But what is wrong? The private health providers, they serve only a small fraction of population. Who do they serve? I'm not talking about Indian conditions. Who do the private health providers serve? Who have money in their pockets? That is, who have the ability to pay, or those who have generous insurance. The entire problem of difficulty to face this COVID-19 is because of dependence on the market. So you are sure that markets are not best. Market can fail. Resources will not be allocated. You know the meaning of the word resource allocation. If you have this much of resources, it has to be put to different uses like this. Okay, this much for education, this much for healthcare, this much for agriculture, like that allocation of resources. So there is one particular allocation which will be for the general satisfaction of the society. That is, society's needs and wants are satisfied. So markets do not necessarily lead to that type of allocation of resources. We say the market outcomes. What is the meaning of outcome? The result of functioning of market. The market outcomes are inefficient. So there is a massive market failure and failure on the part of the private healthcare to bring in optimum level of production. What is optimum? Optimum in economics means ideal or the best. If markets were good, ideal production of all these things would have taken place. Healthcare would have been there. No. Wellness treatment would have been there. They were not sufficient. So we start from the presumption that markets are not okay to ensure the welfare of people. Now we are going to learn. If markets were so good, there would have been no problem like traffic congestion. There would have been no problem of deforestation. There would have been no problem of too much of alcohol being produced, too much of tobacco being produced, too much of intoxicating drugs being produced. You find that there is fish stock in the sea is coming down, and there is gender inequality. You know what is gender inequality? If markets were functioning properly, nothing of this sort would have happened. So actually, when I say market failure, there are two types of market failure. I hope it is clear. I mentioned that COVID-19 is a market failure. Now we go to market failure. There are two levels of market failure actually. Which are the two levels? Complete market failure. Total market failure. That is, the market does not supply anything. The market is there is no market. The market does not supply anything at all. I said the market does not supply. For example, do you think markets will supply street lights? Which producer will supply street lights? No producer will supply street lights. Okay. So there is a total market, missing market we call it. There's no market for street lights. Nobody is going to pay, so no production of street lights, right? It has to be produced by government and not by the private producers. Then there is partial market failure. Complete market failure means there is no good that is supplied. Certain types of goods are not supplied at all. And what is partial market failure? Partial market failure is, okay, goods will be supplied, services will be supplied, but not the right quantity, what is necessary for people. Not the right quantity, not the right price. Then what is it? The wrong quantity, wrong price. Then we call it partial market failure. I'll be more or less following your study material, the study material pattern, because as I said, I should not be talking this and that. My only objective is to make you pass capable of reading and understanding and passing the examination. Okay. So your textbook will be followed. You can keep your textbook open if you want. Please do it. Okay. And so there is a demand side market failure and supply side. That's the next paragraph in your book. A demand side market failure and a supply side market failure. I keep it for the time being, for a later time, and I go further because at this point I cannot discuss. Okay, I'll discuss it after some time. Then we are now examining why do markets fail. I said markets fail. You are convinced also that markets fail. I'm asking, what is the reason? It might sound a little abstract, but understanding it is very, very important. Because once you pass your chartered accountancy, you will be working in strategic positions. And strategic decision making, policy decision making, all that needs a total understanding, a thorough understanding of how markets work and how markets fail. What can you do to make the markets work? The first reason why markets fail is, I'm following your textbook, market power. What is market power? Market power is market power. What is market power? Somebody has some power. You know, under perfect competition, when competition is perfect, the price will be equal to marginal cost. You know the principle of marginal cost. For example, the tea seller, for producing one more tea, he has to spend, say, 4 rupees. Then, as a consumer, you pay 4 rupees for the tea. Aren't you happy? Definitely happy. For producing one more unit of electricity, the electricity board is, or whoever may be the producer, private producer of electricity, is spending 2 rupees. And you get 1 unit of electricity at 2 rupees. Very good. You should be happy, isn't it? So this is the best market outcome, perfect competition. But if someone can charge a price which is greater than marginal cost, his tea is only 4 rupees, but he has advertised so much that he is selling the tea for 12 rupees. His price is more than marginal cost. Why is it? Because you feel that he has some monopoly power. Not a total monopoly power, some monopoly power. For example, industries, when industries are not competitive, I hope I am communicating. Industries are not competitive. For example, suppose there is only one BSNL to provide telephone services. We have experienced time like that. The youngsters do not know, lack of competition. You wait 6 years, 7 years, 8 years to get a telephone connection. Inefficiency, right? If there is only one producer, you call it a monopolist, and he will be producing goods in the most inefficient manner, producing only insufficient quantities, charging high price. So market power comes with some element of monopoly. So when there is market power, the buyers or sellers can exert influence on the price. I'm talking from your text. The buyers or the sellers. How the sellers exercising market power, we know, when they are price makers. They make the price. For example, I produce something. I produce a garment which is a very, very sophisticated. Then I make the price. I say 8,000. I'm a price maker. That is the seller market power. Buyers also have market power. Okay. For example, buyers of good and service experience market power. When there is one buyer and there are so many people queuing to give their commodities. Okay. So buyer power, seller power, naturally price will be greater than marginal. That is why seller's power, I'll explain. Seller's power is monopoly power. Jio has power in pricing their product. You know, petroleum companies have pricing power. Chartered accountants can dictate, if I want to sell my labor to you, I must be given this many lakhs of rupees. That is seller power. And what is buyer power? Buyer power is, for example, there is a supermarket and you take your product, maybe tomato that you are producing, and go to the supermarket. Who decides the price? The buyer decides the price. He says, the supermarket say, okay, I'll buy only for 5 rupees a kilogram. That is buyer power. So when there are only few buyers, buyer power is there. When there are only few sellers, seller power. So conclude, when competition is weak, there is market power. And when there is market power, they charge you high prices. Markets are not efficient. If markets are efficient, we should get the products at marginal cost. We should get the products at the lowest possible price. If you're not getting it, please relate everything to market failure. So market power leads to market failure, partial market. So whenever there is existence of monopoly, you've heard about abnormal profit, supernormal profit. They won't allow others to enter. They will keep their power intact. You call it barriers to entry, and so keep the prices high. Some people get supernormal profit, very high profit. And if they get very high profit, who is exploited? The consumers are exploited. So if markets are good, if there is no market power, market will function efficiently. The moment there is market power, markets are going to fail. So the first reason for market failure is market power, where markets become efficient and people pay higher prices. Sellers and some sellers demand, supernormal profits, monopoly profits. Price is higher than what should be, and this is the first reason. I hope it is clear. Now, the second reason is externality. Externality. Actually, those who have done economics in their +2 will come across the word externality, but it is not taught in detail at +2 level. I will say many words for externality. All these words are given in your book. External effect. Spillover. You spill it, spillover, spread. Spillover effect. Neighborhood effect. Not at the main person, but neighborhood, around. Neighborhood effect. Third party effects. In a transaction, there are two parties, but the effect is on the third party. Okay, what are the words? External effects, okay, spillover effects, neighborhood effects, side effect, third party effect. From this itself, you understand externality is not concerned about people or institutions transacting. It is concerned about outside, some outside person or some outside entity. Okay. Actually, suppose there is a transaction between A and B. Okay, there is a transaction between A and B. And C gets affected by this. C gets affected. So anything that two people or any transaction that is taking place will have some effect on a third party. That is a universal rule. Any transaction that people do usually have some effect on third parties. And this third party is getting affected. Affected does not mean negative. It can be positive or it can be negative. So this third person, he did not choose to. No, he did not choose to. That is given the book. He did not choose to incur that cost of benefit. Okay, A and B has a transaction. It affects either positively or negatively a third person, that is C, and C is getting automatically affected and not out of his choice. right? Anything that two people will have an effect on a third person. I'll tell you one, there are two ways in which C can be affected. C is neighborhood, C is external, C need not be a person, C can be an external entity. It can be an industry, it can be, anything that you will understand later. Now, N95 mask. Earlier, N95 masks were actually used by medical staff, right? Medical staff. But later, people slowly started understanding that the protective power of N95 mask is much higher than ordinary masks. So what people do? People started buying N95 masks. So what happens? Demand for N95 mask is increasing. Do you think N95 mask can be supplied overnight in one day? No. When demand for N95 mask rise, what will happen for the N95 mask? Price will rise. Okay, price of N95 mask will rise. So definitely, suppose people demanding more N95 mask will lead to increase in price for the medical fraternity. Okay, all the medical staff, all those who are buying N95 mask, the prices of N95 mask is going up. I said the price is going up. There is nothing wrong. I'll tell you, because whenever an action affects the prices, it is acting through the market. And tell me, it's like a story. N95 mask now become costlier. Then price acts as a signal. Okay, producers will divert their resources into the production of N95 mask. More N95 masks will be produced. More people will be protected. World will be a happier place. Nothing wrong. So if any action of two people gets reflected in prices, gets reflected in the market to prices, it is not an externality. It is acting through the market. Am I with you? But sometimes, these external effects will not be reflected in price. I'll tell you an example. I'll repeat. These external effects, if it is operating through the market, reflecting on prices, nothing wrong. Because price rises, acts as a signal, nothing wrong. Right? Market will make sure that more N95 masks are produced. But sometimes these external effects do not work through the market, do not affect prices. For example, suppose, I'll tell you 3-4 examples. Suppose your neighbor buys a dog, which keeps on barking. I think everybody, this is from my personal experience, I'm telling, a barking dog. Right? I'll later tell you about the price of the barking dog and all that, right? How it is exactly. We recently had elections here, and the candidate is coming to your house, right, during COVID times. There is a negative effect. You're not comfortable, okay? People are dumping waste on the street. Will there be any effect on price? A barking dog is creating trouble. Will it act through the market? No. The dog is creating nuisance, but there is no price paid for the nuisance. Right? Then a COVID man is coming to a supermarket. A man who is affected by COVID is coming to a supermarket. Everybody gets affected. But does it work through the market? No. Will there be any change? No, not at all. So when do you say there is an externality? Not when prices get affected, but when somebody's action, say for example, A's and B's action affect another person or entity, his production possibility, I'm using the same word given in your text, affects your production possibility set. That is, because of an external effect, C cannot produce. C's production capability is affected. C is affected either positively or negatively as a producer in his production. C's production gets either increases or decreases. Externality can be like that. So production possibility of C is affected. And suppose C is a consumer. As a consumer, C may be positively affected or negatively affected. Then we say there is an externality. That is, somebody's actions influence a third entity and affects either his production, affects positively or negatively his ability to produce. That is a production possibility set, ability to produce. A consumer positively or negatively his welfare. Okay, my welfare. Okay. Then remember what I said earlier. This is not acting through the market. It does not reflect in price. Another thing is that it is no market, it will not be reflected in market, right? And this C did not choose to, that is it. This C did not choose to experience it. Sometimes it happens to you. Good things. Suppose a canal is passing through your property, right? You did not pay for that. It is somebody built a canal. Don't you think if it is passing through your property, water will percolate and your land becomes, irrigated? I mean, you can easily irrigate your land, right? But does it increase your production possibility? Yes. Did you pay for that? No. Without paying, you are getting. So I'm slowly coming to. Let's come back to the barking dog again. I said it doesn't reflect in market price. Okay. Suppose your neighbor bought a barking dog for 50,000 rupees. Right? What is the market price of the barking dog? 50,000 rupees. And it is causing nuisance to you, worth 5,000 rupees a month. Suppose you impute the value of nuisance. It is 5,000 rupees of nuisance. Why did your neighbor buy for this cost? Because he gets a benefit equal to 50,000. Please be with me. His cost is 50,000. His benefit is 50,000. Right. But he is creating a nuisance of 5,000. So actually the cost for him is 50,000 and cost for the neighbors is 5,000. So the true cost of the dog is, in terms of money, 55,000. But when he bought the dog, what is the true price he paid? 50,000. So this nuisance or negative externality of equivalent to 5,000 rupees, I am simply imputing a value, remember? It is not included in the price. That's what is meant by not operating through the market. mechanism. Okay. Now, what is actually the demand curve? What is actually the demand curve? A little bit of basic economics. The demand curve shows your willingness to pay. The demand curve shows your willingness to pay. And the supply curve shows your cost. Okay. Demand curve shows your willingness to pay, and the supply curve shows your cost. It determines a price, right? It determines a price, but this price does not include the externality. Okay, I hope it is clear. I said it many times. Okay, that takes us to externality, which is, I'll repeat, externality occurs outside the price mechanism. Externality is not compensated for. Do I get any compensation for 5,000 rupees worth nuisance? I don't get any compensation. The cost is not borne by your neighbor. The cost is not internalized. I'm using a new word. Internalized. Externality, let it not fall on your neighbor. Let it come back to you. Okay? So that is internalized. How can this cost of barking dog come back to you? You can internalize it. You know, your neighbor can buy, say, for example, an ultrasonic anti-dog barking. Okay, ultrasonic. No, there are machines. Ultrasonic anti-dog barking machine, say for 6,000 rupees. It may be more than that. Say for 6,000 rupees. So now, what is the cost of the dog? 56,000 rupees. Right? The dog will not bark. It will not cause nuisance. And so this guy has internalized the externality. You know what is the meaning? That is, absorb the externality without passing it to someone else. That is internalizing the externality. So let's now go to characteristics of externality. Externality, as I said, can be favorable. It is favorable when it is positive externality, we call it. A positive externality is beneficial. A negative externality is not beneficial. It is a cost. So I can tell you some positive externalities. Suppose you take an immunization, vaccination for COVID, or vaccination for flu, or vaccination for malaria. What is the externality you create? You pay the money, take the vaccine. What is the externality? You don't spread COVID to a third person. The entire neighbors, your friends, everybody benefits. That is a positive externality. You know, internet, open source material. You get Wikipedia. What is the externality? You don't pay anything, but still you benefit from. There's a lot of research that is taking place, and you can apply the research in your production. That is an externality. You are not paying anything, but you are getting a positive benefit. Companies which give training, trained people are more productive. They leave the job, come and join your organization. What will happen? Positive. You have not spent any money for training them, but you are getting the benefit. It is a positive externality. Just tell you simple. Then pest control. Your neighbors do some pest control in their agricultural field. Pests do not come to their field naturally. Your field also gets benefited. That is a positive externality. Then you wear good perfume and walk around, and everybody smells and are happy, right? It is again a positive externality. I hope it is clear. Positive externality. I buy the perfume, I spray the perfume, and everybody enjoys the smell, is a positive. Somebody makes a garden. I will not be telling the examples given. Somebody makes a garden, I can watch without giving them any money is a positive externality. Then what is a negative externality? It is a cost, external cost. Example, pollution. Pollution. A bakery giving out fumes. A company, a factory giving out fumes, effluents, chemicals. People smoking cigarettes, negative externality. Loud barking dogs, negative externality. Your neighbor keeping the television at a very high volume, negative externality. Loud stereos in your neighboring apartment, negative externality. Ear-splitting microphones. Then rash bike drivers. Wherever you look, you can see hundreds of examples of negative externality. Right? That is rash bike drivers. They make a lot of noise. They create accidents. People who drink and drive, they create accidents and create negative externality. Okay. So externality can be unidirectional, reciprocal. That's easily understood. Unidirectional, one party imposes an externality on other, the other party sits quiet. But if that other party also gives externality, then it is reciprocal. All these are very simple. Then in your textbook, negative externality, 4 types of classifications are given. That is a negative externality which will be received in consumption or in production. That is, an externality can be received in production or consumption. All types of externalities. First, I will say a negative clear, study material is clear. A negative externality received in production. The example that's given in your book is water pollution. I'll make it, suppose radioactive waste is put in the river, or radioactive waste is dumped in a particular place, and it will enter the food chain, the vegetables and the meat that is produced in that place, it becomes affected by this and it becomes not saleable. That is negative externality in production. A negative externality in production may be received in production is what I said. It affects my production. A negative externality, please be very, very clear. What I said is a negative externality received in production. A negative externality may be received in consumption. For example, black fumes coming out of the factory. It will create, it will destroy the beauty of trees. It will destroy the beauty of buildings. And when I want to see the beauty of nature, consume the beauty of nature, it is a negative externality. Then, polluted water is not good for consumption. Negative externality is in consumption. So we have finished learning negative externality, which is received in production, negative externality of production, which is received in production or in consumption. Application questions will come. That's why I'm teaching you these extra examples. Okay, so please keep writing. You can write in your textbook because we don't need this textbook after May 2021, isn't it? Right, we don't need this textbook for a long time. So you can make your book dirty by writing here and there, no problem. So negative externalities. Traffic congestion is a negative externality. It will lower the quality of my life, isn't it? Now, production externalities are over. Consumption externalities. That is when somebody consumes something, it will affect either production or consumption of a third party. So negative externality of consumption, for example, excessive alcohol, right? Excessive alcohol consumed by a person will affect the factory the production possibility of the factory in which he is employed. Suppose there is loud music around. Class is a production of service. You are attending a class. It is a production of service. So loud music in the neighborhood affects. I always feel it that is loud music from nearby places affect your teaching. They are consuming the music, but it affects my production. Then next is negative consumption. Externality received in consumption. For somebody smoking, I am consuming it, passive smoking. Now Vishu is coming, lots of crackers outside. It affects your consumption of music. You are listening to music, but these crackers affect your, okay. Right. Now, these are the two things. We said negative production externalities, negative production externalities, negative consumption externalities. Positive production externality, it's not very common. It also may be received in production, as I said already, example, training, research. Air Force is training a lot of pilots. Who is getting the benefit actually? The private aircrafts, the private services, they are getting the benefit. That is positive production externality. Then received in consumption. Somebody makes a garden, I always said, For example, the metro rail, it has apportioned places and industries make garden there. We can watch it. That is a positive production externality received in consumption. And actually, this live virtual classes which we are attending, it has a positive production externality in consumption. Many people can consume the classes. This positive production externality, production is done by ICAI. Cost is borne by ICAI. But externality is for the entire student community who are writing their chartered accountancy exam. Right. Then positive, right. Then externalities cause market failure. That is what we are. Everything has to be connected to market failure. How is this externality causing market failure? Here, we have to make a distinction between private cost and social cost. Private cost and social cost. What is private cost? All the money cost that you incur. Direct material, direct labor, indirect overheads. That is private cost. You produce something, but there is an externality that you produce. A negative externality. Okay? A negative externality that you produce. So, this private cost plus the external cost will make is equal to social cost. Okay, private cost is the cost faced by the producer. That's the direct cost of production. It does not include externalities. For example, for producing electricity in a coal-fired thermal plant, right? The private cost is 2 rupees, right? External cost is 1 rupee 50 paise. That is imputed cost of all the pollution, etc. So what is the actual social cost? What is the society bearing? Society is bearing 3 rupees 50 paise for producing 1 unit of electricity. And this man is selling electricity for 2 rupees 50 paise. Because his cost is only 2 rupees, he is selling it for 2 rupees 50 paise. Tell me what happened. The social cost is not completely covered. The price is only 250. It covers only the private cost. It does not cover the social cost or the externality. To tell it in simple terms, the externality does not get reflected in market price. Only private cost gets reflected in market price. I repeat, social cost is equal to private cost plus external cost. So when will this private cost and social cost differ or diverge? When will the private cost and social cost differ? When there is an externality. Suppose the externality is zero. Externality is zero. Then private cost and social cost will be the same. Whenever social cost will exceed private cost, whenever there is an externality. And to introduce it now, actually what happens is electricity is available for 50 pies. 2 rupees 50 pies. So people, if electricity is available for 350, I am drawing the demand curve. If electricity is available for 350, only this much electricity will be demanded. Our ordinary demand. If it is available for 2 rupees 50 pies, Q1 will be demanded, more will be demanded. When more is demanded, more will be produced. So there will be overproduction. This production of Q1 is not good for the society because the price should be at least as high as 350, only then social cost will be covered. But since only private cost is covered, electricity is not priced efficiently, and there will be overproduction and overpollution, and there is market failure. Okay, what is a company's incentive? My monetary cost. But what should be real cost? What should be the real concern? Social cost. Okay, so what is efficient production then? Efficient production is when price reflects social cost and not private cost alone. Price should reflect social cost, then production will be optimum and externality will be minimum. Right. So there are certain terms given in the book. In the new edition, it is made explicit. That is, we need to be clear about the term marginal private cost. Marginal cost, our usual marginal cost. What is marginal private cost? That is, marginal means addition made to total by one more. That is the meaning of marginal. Addition made to the total by one more unit of electricity that is produced. Marginal, this 2 rupee 50 paisa which I mentioned. Okay, marginal private benefit. Sorry, marginal private cost. And what is marginal external cost? 1 rupee 50 paisa which I said. Marginal, that is the externality imposed by one more unit of electricity. So what is marginal private cost? 2. Okay, marginal external cost 1 rupee 55. And what is marginal social cost? Altogether, for producing 1 unit of electricity, the society, this can be calculated in terms of money, imputed value. So the society incurs an additional cost of 3 rupees 50 paisa. So marginal social cost is marginal private cost plus marginal external cost, right? So this is the actual cost to the society, but we consider only private cost. We consider only private cost while fixing the price. Clear? Okay. So let us go to benefit. This is the cost side. Let us think about the benefit. What is marginal private benefit? That is the money, the benefit I get by consuming an additional unit. For example, if you know the basics of economics, that is the demand curve that you draw is actually your willingness to pay. Marginal willingness to pay. That is for an additional unit. Okay, from 4 units, 4 apples to 5 apples. For an additional unit, what are you willing to pay? The additional amount that you are willing to pay for an additional unit. That is your marginal private benefit. Actually, marginal private benefit curve is the same as demand curve. Okay, marginal private benefit is the benefit I receive when I buy something by paying prices. You know, the principle is I pay money, it is painful. Okay, I give out my money from my pocket. What do I get in return? The benefit, right? So if I'm doling out 5 rupees for an apple, I should get back the benefit of 5 rupees. So marginal private benefit curve is the same as demand curve. So sometimes for consumption, it is not private benefit alone. I take to give 250 rupees and take COVID vaccine, right? That is a transaction between me and the hospital, but that has an external benefit. And that is marginal external benefit. That is 1 more unit of COVID vaccine. How much will benefit will have for external benefit it will have? Clear? And so marginal private benefit, marginal external benefit, that is the externality, and that is marginal social benefit. If marginal private benefit is worth 250 for the COVID vaccine, marginal external benefit is worth 150, and marginal social benefit of COVID vaccine is 400 rupees. But price reflects only marginal private benefit. It does not include the marginal external benefit. Okay, so marginal social benefit. When there is no externality present, there is no external cost, there is no external benefit. Application question. When there is no externality, there is no external cost, there is no external benefit. Marginal private cost is marginal social cost. Marginal private benefit is equal to marginal social benefit. Right? Only when externality positive or negative. Right? The difference between private benefit, private cost, all these. And the next question is, what is socially, I'll take questions after discussing, finishing externality. What is socially optimal output? What is socially, what is the meaning of optimal? The ideal, the best, what the society wants, what is best for the society, what takes into consideration the benefit of the society. That is, all costs are covered and all benefits are covered. And so we can say socially optimal output is marginal social benefit is equal to marginal. That is the point at which marginal social benefit is equal to. That is our marginal principle. I can't teach you at this point. That is our marginal principle. You know, MC is equal to MR. Cost is equal to revenue. Benefit is equal to cost. I said, you know, if I am giving 5 rupees for an extra apple, I should get the benefit of 5 rupees. So there is always a balancing of cost and benefit. So marginal social benefit should be equal to marginal social cost. Learn it properly. What is the efficient level of output? Efficient level of output takes place at MSC, marginal social cost is equal to marginal social benefit. And what is sentence given in your book? The last unit produced. The last unit produced yield benefits which are equal to benefits to the society which are equal to cost to the society, or the cost of the last unit, the social cost of the last unit should be equal to the social benefit. I repeat now, what does demand curve show? Willingness to pay. Willingness to pay depends on my benefit, private benefit. And what does supply curve show? Cost. And price should be sufficient to cover the cost. Right. Now I am going to explain, the demand side market failure, supply side market failure. Demand side market failure is demand curve. Now it is clear for you. The demand curve shows only marginal private benefit, and supply curve only shows marginal private cost. This is the problem with the market. Okay, production takes place by the interaction of private benefit curve, which is the same as demand curve, and private cost curve, which is the same as private supply curve. So output is decided at the point where, and price is decided at the point. So P and Q is decided by the market. But please understand, this marginal private benefit curve does not include externality. If externality is included, I will not go to that detail because it will be to the right. Private cost does not include externality. Right. And now, just one diagram in your book is introduced. Economics people will study so many diagrams. But suppose the market, we leave the market and examine the social cost, marginal social cost. You can look into your book. The marginal private cost plus marginal external cost will give you the marginal social cost. So tell me it is whether it is negative externality or positive negative externality. Because look at the cost, take a particular point and see. Marginal private cost is only this much, but marginal social cost. For example, at output Q, marginal private cost is this much, marginal social cost is much higher. Okay. And what is optimum now? MSC is equal to MSB. Here we assume that marginal private benefit is equal to marginal. Please add it. It is not there in your study material. Please write is equal to marginal social benefit. Marginal social private benefit is equal to marginal social benefit. And so social optimum is this. This is social optimum. Price should be as high as P1. Then only this much of output will be produced. And the right optimal level of output, no overproduction. So whenever there is negative externality, this much is overproduction. Actual production should be only this much, but this is overproduction. And for each additional unit that is produced, okay, the social cost, the society bears a cost. And so for all the excess production, this is the loss of social welfare. The society loses for every additional unit that is produced. There is a difference between marginal social cost and marginal private benefit, private cost. This is externality. And the society, when you produce this much instead of this much, this is optimal, but this is overproduction. This much is overproduction. When you overproduce, this is the quantity of welfare lost to the society. We call it dead weight loss. What is dead weight loss? It is lost in thin air. Nobody gets it. I lose some money as I was walking, but somebody gets it. There is no dead weight loss because my loss is somebody's gain. I pay the price and the shopkeeper gets it. It's not dead weight loss because one person's loss is another person's gain. But here this is dead weight loss because it is lost. That welfare is lost to the society. It has disappeared in the air. I hope you understand. Okay. And so this is where we conclude that the market price is too low and the output is too much. That is the meaning of the explanation given in your book. There is overproduction. Market price is too low. And only at the higher price P1, less output will be produced because demand will be less. And for the producer, it is not good. For the consumer, it is not good. But from the social point of view, the right amount of, if it is producing effluents, if it is producing chemical fumes, the right quantity of fumes will be produced. So whenever there is negative externality, there is overproduction and prices are too low. Okay, you will be surprised to learn this theory, but please understand. Now I go to the questions and after that I will give you a break. Okay, right? I don't think very beautiful questions. I mean, very beautiful statements I can read. Oh, video is buffering? Right. No. The hike in price of petroleum, Sheikh Tajud is asking me a question. The hike in price of petroleum, is it due to market failure? Yes. For example, if, of course, the principle of taxation, right? The hike in the price of petrol taxation and how it is related to international prices, excise duty, how it is outside GST, all these we know. But if you leave it to the market, we have not left it to the market, we do not know. Because petroleum prices are not actually fully left to the market. It is definitely duties, etc., that is creating problem. Definitely, if it is left to the market, we do not know. Sometimes market failure will not be there. But please remember, it is not left to totally to the market. Demand and price are, yes, Vijay Shankar asked me, demand and price are inversely related. Yes. No, yes, good. Good question. Vijay Shankar, that is, remember the simple demand and supply diagram. That is, you presume basics, economics basics. Now the price of N95 mask is 35 rupees. I am simply putting it. This is the demand curve, this is the supply curve. All of a sudden, advertisement came in the newspaper. N95 mask has great protective value. Demand increases to D1, and price increases to 60. I hope it is clear. Here it is, demand increases, demand curve shifts to the right. Our foundation text will give you that. Then positive externalities. Jai Krishna Vyas is asking me, positive externalities may have positive impacts in near future will be counted. Positive externality, yes. Positive externalities have positive impacts. It has to be encouraged. That you will be learning in the next topic. Yes, it will be encouraged by the government, positive externalities. External cost won't be negative. That is, Tanushri is asking me, ma'am, external cost won't be negative. If it is at what situation would be? External cost is always negative. Benefit is positive. External cost means, you are imposing negative things on something. That is external cost. You are reducing the welfare. Pollution creates external cost. Loud music cost external cost. So external cost is not beneficial to the third party. I hope it is clear. Okay, right. What is social welfare? Yeah, social welfare. Good question. Because Nakul asked, because I presume that you know. Social welfare is a state where people are satisfied. Suppose there's a lot of inequality in the nation. Suppose there is a lot of disease. Suppose there is a lot of accidents. Suppose there is a lot of congestion. You reduce all that, people are happier and people are enjoying or experiencing happiness. Physical happiness, mental happiness, all these come when there is welfare. Student welfare. What is student welfare? Students should not be pressurized too much. Students should be, reasonably treated. Then you say there is student welfare. Beating in schools are not allowed because it is not conducive to welfare of students. So I hope it's clear for you. Then what happens when there is a positive? Yeah, good. But the problem is, we have actually economics students study all these 30 diagrams associated with, what happens when there is. Here I have, in the previous diagram, I have said only about negative externality because that is beyond the scope of a chartered accountancy program. When there is positive externality, underproduction, okay, underproduction is the result of positive externality. That is education has positive externality. But do you think sufficient education will be provided by private sector? They will not provide all to all poor people. It is always good to educate people. Education has positive externality. That is explained so much in the textbook. That's why I left out all this. Okay. Education has positive externality. But do you think left to the market, all poor people will be educated? No. Education will be available only for the rich people. So there is a market failure when there is a positive externality. There is a market failure when there is a negative externality. You can take a break 5 minutes. Now we will, little less than 5 minutes, we will come back and go a little more faster because one more unit is having. Okay. Thank you for your patient listening and take a break 4 minutes so that we'll make it okay. Please take a break. Break. 4 minutes break. We have finished learning 2 reasons. Yes, slightly slow, we'll go fast. Now, the third reason for market failure is public goods. What are public goods? Before we go to public goods, we have to learn, 2 terms. That is private goods. Private goods are, I'll go fast here. Private goods are anything that you own private. For example, your house, your car, your bike, your shirt, your laptop, your mobile phone, your TV, everything is private. Your pen, your pencil, your books, everything is private. Right? Your house, your shirt. I said your house, your shirt. Okay. They are rivalrous. Rival in consumption means when one person is consuming it, when you are wearing your shirt, nobody else can wear your shirt. You live in your house, nobody else can live in your house. Rival, when one is enjoying, others cannot enjoy it. That is the meaning of rivalrous. I hope it is clear. Then private goods are excludable. That is, you have to pay a price. If you want to get a private good, you have to pay a price. Okay. Those who cannot pay or those who do not pay will be excluded from the use of private goods. Right? And there is no free rider problem. What is free riding? That is those who enjoy something without paying. All private goods have to be paid because for producing it, cost is to be incurred. Please go through the features of private goods. But understand these 2 terms, rivalrous, excludable. And so private goods will be produced by market because it will be paid by people. People express their preferences. People express their demand curve. There is a demand curve for private good. For example, for buying Apple, this is a demand curve of Apple. If price is this much, this will be bought. Okay. People express their willingness to pay because if you don't pay, you won't get it. Please remember the two terms, rivalrous, excludable, no free riding, and so market will produce private goods and provide. But what is public good? This is a source of market failure, a very, very important area, right? Public goods, there are 17 properties of public goods given in your book. I challenge you, find out. Okay, only 5 or 6 you will see in the beginning. But till the end, if you read, there are 17 properties of public goods collectively consumed by the society as a whole. Take the case of defense, police, fire protection, flood relief, flood protection, building these floods and so on, flood protection, then law and order, street light, okay, street light. All these are examples of public goods. They are collectively consumed and non-rivalrous. Please note the word non-rivalrous. One person's consumption does not reduce the consumption of another person. If I walk in the street light at night, does it reduce your ability of enjoying the street light? No. So non-rivalrous, non-excludable. Anybody withhold, the street light. Definitely, I cannot be excluded. Once a street light is provided, everybody, once a road is well built, everybody can use that road. Right? Non-rivalrous, non-excludable. Okay? Non-rival, then characterized by indivisibility. You cannot divide. Defense services are enjoyed in its entirety by the people. Okay, the total defense is consumed by me. The same total defense is consumed by you. But did you notice, did you pay anything directly to government for defense? No, you did not pay. You don't have to pay anything for a street light that is in front of your house. And so, nobody wants the street light. Okay, definitely, I will not be willing to pay for a street light. I will not be willing to pay for putting cement bricks on my street because it's a government's job, isn't it? Because everybody will enjoy. But I will put cement bricks in my property, in my plot, because my property rights, right to my property is defined. But I have no right for the road. You will enjoy that at my expense. The street light, I will not put the street light because everybody will enjoy. It is public. I don't have ownership of that. I cannot exclude anybody from enjoying it. And so I don't have sufficient control. And so I will not produce. I ask you, you also will not produce. I ask Ambani, he will not produce. I ask Adani, he will not produce. I ask the citizens of Kerala, citizens of India, no, nobody will produce. And since markets will not produce public goods because nobody gets profit by producing a public good because nobody will pay. Suppose I install a street light and say everybody who is passing through put 1 rupee, 1 rupee. Will you pay? You will not. Suppose I build a nice, place to sit in front of the sea, in a beach, and ask everybody who sits here put 50 paise. Nobody is going to do that because you can free ride. Okay, you can free ride. Use it without paying, then nobody will pay. That is why market is not interested in producing public goods. So that is market will fail. They will not be produced at all. If at all it is produced, it is underproduced, not the right quantity. So that is the market failure. The market will not produce public goods. So third type of market failure is public goods. So there is a classification, but all public goods, this is a highly argued thing. What they say is, what is a criterion? This is one question. What is the criterion of criteria for classification of public goods and private goods? Rivalry and excludability. So there is a small, square where it is given A, B, C, D classification of public good. Look at A, pure public good, national defense, knowledge. Okay, knowledge, right? Knowledge. You know a particular recipe and you put it on YouTube. Anybody can use it. Radio reception, public good. Anybody who has a radio can get the radio signal. Pure public good. Non-rivalrous. Because I am operating my radio, you are not getting. Right. Fish in the sea, everybody can. Fish in the river, everybody can. Common resources, nobody can be excluded. But suppose everybody goes fishing, what will happen? It is rivalrous. One person's action will reduce another person's fish catch. Then look at C, non-rivalrous. You have to really sit and study this. Take a table and study. Non-rivalrous, but excludable. It is non-rival. Everybody can. So, for example, cable television, cable TV. One connection of cable TV does not affect the quality of cable TV in another house, but you can be excluded. How do you exclude it? If you're not willing to pay, you will not get the cable. Cinema. Okay, everybody is sitting and watching cinema. Because you are seeing the cinema doesn't mean that your neighbors' happiness of seeing the cinema is reduced. Not at all. But excludable. How? You have to pay money to enter the theater, isn't it? So, for example, children park. Children park is, it is excludable because a fee is charged at entry. But unless it is congested, it is actually non-rivalrous. I sit in the students, my child plays in the children's park, another child also plays in the children's park. Right. So that ABCD, please learn properly, it's clearly given. But people argue that there is nothing like public good. So this is economic theory. So we have what is known as non-rival, non-excludable. So what will be impure? This rivalry and excludability. These are the two criteria. Rivalry and excludability. These two things come partially, not fully. So partially rivalrous and exclusion. Partially, if these things happen, partially rivalrous and partially excludable. So then we call it impure. For example, congestion. Suppose so many people drive on the highway. Please note that we are studying Western economics. Okay, so little bit of Western taste will be there. Suppose lots of people drive on the highway. What will happen? What happens is congestion will come. So it is rivalrous because there is congestion. Our example of open access Wi-Fi is given in your book, right? So it is an impure public. Definitely, you can use the road. It only reduces your, happiness in using the road, but it does not exclude you. So it is actually rivalrous because whenever there is congestion, so many vehicles using the road, You cannot be excluded, isn't it? So how can you be excluded? For example, FASTag. If you're using this particular, toll gates. So that is why people who are very sensitive about, money, they may use it less often. That is the way you can exclude. So congestible. So this is hybrid. Okay. Whenever congestion is possible, excludability by paying a price. So it is not a pure public good now. A highway can be excluded by, okay. So it only partially satisfies non-rivalry. A highway partially satisfies non-rivalry because it is congestible. It only partially satisfies non-excludability because some people can be excluded. Some people who are not willing to pay can be excluded. And so that is an impure public good. When it is impure public good, you can charge a price, you can charge a fee and reduce the congestion. Then comes, impure, just read it carefully. Impure public good have only partially characteristics. To you prepare a table and study, right? That is partially they have the characteristics of public good, but sometimes they are rivalrous, just like when there is congestion. So they are partially excludable also. Those who don't pay, don't get. Then two more classifications. Actually, it's a huge theory just compressed in a few pages. Club good. What is a club good? Some examples are given. Club goods are like swimming pool, cinema, etc. So these club goods, of course, they are replicable. For example, if one pond where swimming pool, not pond, one swimming pool gets congested, another swimming pool will come up, and it is replicable. You can repeat it. Another person can make a swimming pool. Another person can make a swimming pool. Right? Then that is club good. Those who don't pay, definitely it is excludable. Then variable use public goods. Variable use public goods. For example, a highway. A highway is a variable use. That is, its use can change from one time to another. Right? A highway is so congested during peak times. That's why many people use it during peak times. Now, how do you exclude? For example, people in Delhi will know how, this alternate number systems were introduced to exclude some people from using the city roads. So they can be excludable or non-excludable. Some people can be prevented from using the highway, for example, during certain peak times. Some people can be prevented by making them pay. But if it is not replicable, for example, suppose there is a highway from Pune to Mumbai. Do you think again a parallel highway will come? It will not. And so people should not be excluded because there is not replicable. People should be allowed because it is not replicable. But some people can be excluded if they are not willing to pay the required toll. Okay, these are all classifications which we studied, right? Impure public good. Then let's go for a revision of impure public good. Impure public good are partially rivalrous. When is it rivalrous? When there is congestion. And so many people are using it. It becomes rivalrous, unlike public goods which are non-rival. I repeat, they are partially rivalrous because it can cause congestion, and when there is congestion, my engine rivalrous. And a public good, a pure public good is non-excludable, but a impure public or public good. So we have done classifications of pure public good, some types of impure public good. Inoculation, I buy from, I pay 250 rupees. Education, I pay so much money and get educated. It is a private good. But don't you think this has benefits of a public good? That is because of my education, because of my inoculation, I cannot exclude others from enjoying the benefits of an educated person. I cannot exclude the benefits of an inoculation, right? Because everybody enjoys, everybody who is coming into contact, the public enjoys the benefit of inoculation it is actually a private good. So that is why it is written in your book. It focuses on the mix of, please note those words, on the mix of services that arise from the production of the good. Possessing all qualities of private good, but the outcome, the result is a public good. That is, there is infinite benefit. I've given an example of, an educated person. Lots of advantages the society gets. But I bought the education as a private good. The society gets the benefit. The society, I cannot prevent anybody from getting the benefit. Okay. Chartered accountancy education. You buy chartered accountancy from the Institute of Chartered Accountants. You buy the classes from different institutions, right? It is your cost. But there are external benefits of a chartered accountant. Hundreds of benefits that arise to the public because you are a chartered accountant. The consultation that you give to your neighbor, the smart life that you lead, okay, the suggestions that you give for your neighbors, for corporations, public people. Okay, because when you are buying chartered accountancy, you did not consider these positive externalities. Okay, so that is quasi-public goods. It is actually a private good, but its outcome as public, goes like a public good. You cannot prevent others enjoying the fragrance that you are spreading as a learned person, right? Then comes another class, common access. I am dealing only with the possible questions, right? Common access resources, common pool resources. What is a common access? That is, everybody can have access to that. Everybody has access. I can get it, you can use it, everybody can use it. That is a special case of impure. You don't have to pay. Natural resources, okay, like water in Ganga river, right? Water in river, okay. What people do is, people overuse it, and it is actually rival in nature. When people are overusing it, what happens is, its quality comes down. Natural resources gets depleted. Okay, environment is something that is used by everybody, and when everybody is using environment, its quality becomes rivalrous. For example, one person's use, so many people use it, and its quality gets reduced. Tragedy of commons, that is the other thing about common pool resources. Tragedy of commons. In the new edition, it is given clearly. It is a tragedy that common pool property came from, common grazing land where you can leave your cows and goat, etc. to eat grass. It is public property. Anybody can send their cow, etc. for grazing. And what happens is, everybody will use it. And it is my self-interest that I send my cows to that place. Your self-interest that your cows will benefit by that. So everybody will protect their self-interest by using this common property. Like that, a backwater or a sea where fish can be caught, everybody will go and catch fish. Environment is again something. Okay, these are overused, and what will happen? It is disadvantages to the entire world because my self-interest, your self-interest, everybody's self-interest. We will overuse it and deplete. If markets were functional, this is a public good. So public good will be overused and there is a market failure in the case of common food resources. Nobody will protect it. So all public goods are market failure. Then the next question can be about global public goods. Global grazing land is for this country or for us. Okay, our forest is ours. But there are public goods that are, which are entirely, no single country is the owner of that. Okay, public goods which are entirely experienced or used by all people in the world. Actually, that itself is a huge, study in economics, but just 1 or 2 paragraphs is given just to tell you what is global public good. Final public good, intermediate public good. Suppose COVID is eradicated and everybody is happy. That is an outcome, final public good, so that we experience a world without COVID. And that is final public good, so that we can move about freely. We enjoy that. And what is intermediate public good? All those measures which are conducive to eradication of COVID. For example, all the regulations about people who are coming from other countries, people who are sitting in quarantine, all these are examples of intermediate public. WHO's initiative, World Health Organization's initiative. Then continues in your book, 5 types of 5 types. Yes, 5 types of global public goods. That is environment, communicable. Now it is easy for you to understand. Environment, global environment. We are going to learn that in the next paragraph. That is zero carbon emission. Carbon, how much of carbon will countries emit? That is environmental performance. Communicable diseases like malaria, COVID, etc. International trade, WTO. That is one unit you will study. That is international architecture for trade. Financial architecture, all these payments, exchange rates and systems or international finance. At the click of a mouse, you can do trading. Why? Because there is a financial infrastructure. You can trade in New York Stock Exchange, right? Click of a mouse, isn't it? That is because of financial architecture. That is a common property, isn't it? It's a public good, everybody can enjoy it. Then, research and development for knowledge, right? And that takes us to, we have to go slightly faster. Free rider problem, I have already explained. That is, people enjoy things without paying. A street light, for example. I will not pay, you will not pay. Then there is no demand curve. I will not say I am willing to pay. I don't have a demand curve for a street light because everybody will enjoy. I pay money and everybody will enjoy. And so nobody will express a demand curve or willingness to pay for a street light. And then that is free riding. I will use it, but I will not pay. Everybody does it. And so market will not produce such goods which are liable for free riding. Then who will produce? The government has to produce because no market will produce. So in the case of public goods, there is a free riding problem. People use it without paying it. Then there is no demand curve, no willingness to pay. People will not express their private benefit. And so market will not produce. And so individuals will have the strategy of not paying, then nobody will produce a public good. So when it is not produced, when there is no street light that is provided, nobody can free ride because there is no street light, no question of paying also. So the strategy will fail. Right. So public good will not be produced. So public good is a market failure. We have learned three things now. Number one, market power. Number two, externalities. Number three, public goods. And the last one is incomplete information. Very, very important. Yesterday in business line, I saw the title is Moral Hazard in Reserve Bank's Actions. See, if learning economics is essential, even that if you have to read the newspaper, right? So incomplete information, that is the first part of it, incomplete information. We do not, there is a branch of economics known as information economics. We don't have information about so many things. We are simply buying, consuming things based on some heuristics. HEUR, some assumptions. For example, you go for a cardiac surgery, not you. Somebody goes for a treatment in the hospital. What do you know about the treatment? We do not know anything. Isn't it? We are going and buying it on the belief that we will get it. Okay. We do not know about the efficacy of COVID vaccine. Right. We are unable to find out which brand of television is good. We are unable to find out which brand of mobile phone is good because somebody said this. We read certain things. Yes, indeed. So we make wrong choices because there is incomplete information. That takes us to asymmetric information. Asymmetry. What is the meaning of symmetry? Symmetry occurs when both sides are equal, isn't it? For example, the normal curve that you learned, isn't it? It's symmetry, isn't it? Both sides are equal. What is asymmetric? That is, both sides are not equal. So here we are talking about market. So two sides of the market is, one is a buyer and the other is a seller. So either the buyer or the seller information is not equal or asymmetric information. The buyer has more knowledge than the seller, or the seller knows more than the buyer. We say there is asymmetric information, right? A borrower, suppose I go to a bank, I am a borrower. I know about my credit worthiness. I know about my habits of repayment, but the banker does not know. Now, of course, credit rating is there, isn't it? Sorry, the CIBIL is there. But yes, that is a mechanism by which this asymmetric information is solved, right? Used car seller, that is example. Used car seller. Who is a used car seller? A used car seller. A used car seller knows more about his car than the buyer, isn't it? Then that is about the sellers, right? Health insurance buyers, very important. Those who are buying health insurance, I know my health condition, isn't it? I have more knowledge than the insurance company about my health, isn't it? That is asymmetric information. The buyer and seller has different information. This leads to two things. One is adverse selection. Please note the term adverse selection. Adverse means it is against my interest. Right. When you read the textbook, you have to read the example first and then only read the first paragraph. Adverse selection is, suppose some apples are kept for sale. I choose one apple. All apples you look alike. But I choose that apple and it happens to be a rotten one inside. I cannot check inside of an apple when I am buying. I have made an adverse selection, right? A selection which is not in the interest of the good, in my interest. So this is only to explain what is meant by adverse selection. I am using a selection which is not in my best interest. Okay. And so what is adverse selection? That is before a transaction is done, there are some hidden facts. Some facts I do not know. I do not know, so that I make a selection which is not good for me. Example, whatever is given in the book, revised this year's book, it is given in detail. When I buy a health insurance, I know that I had previous surgeries. I know that I have blood pressure. I have so much of disease. So I go to the insurer and ask, give me an insurance. So who is the one who is usually asking for insurance? If I ask my class, how many students do you have insurance? Only 2 or 3 children will raise their hand, because young people, healthy people do not necessarily go for health insurance. Then who goes for health insurance? Higher health risk people. Okay. And so what happens is, the insurance buyers, the proportion of unhealthy people in the insurance is high. And so what happens? Insurance claims will come. They go to the hospital very often, insurance claim will come. And then insurance company finds, okay, the premium has to be increased. Because the claims are so much, the premium has to be. So you will keep the high premium. I am telling you a story, be with me. Keep the premium very high. And what will happen? Then these young people and healthy people will not buy, because you pay the premium, it is lost because you will not claim anything. And so what happens is, again unhealthy people will buy. And so what happens? Then the proportion of unhealthy people will increase. And finally, a point will come where, insurance become unprofitable because all unhealthy people, the insurance is sold. Insurance company has done adverse selection, selected only people who are unhealthy, whose claims are very high. Insurance become unprofitable. Finally, they decided to stop insurance. So a missing market. Insurance will not be provided. So asymmetric information leads to adverse selection. You will ask me, why can't the insurance company ask? Will I say truth? No. Will I reveal? Even if I know, I will not reveal. That is a different thing, isn't it? Then why not they taken to big hospitals and done medical checkup? Not possible. That is cost. Cost increases means premium will also increase. And young people and healthy people again will not come if premium is high. See the trouble, right? So market is failing because ending up selecting a substandard product, that is unhealthy people, or leaving the market altogether, stop insurance business altogether because it's not profitable, then insurance will not be provided. Is it social welfare? No, insurance has to be provided, isn't it? So that is adverse selection. That is, insurance company selects good products, good buyers disappear from the market, only bad buyers remain in the market, and insurance company has to sell to people who are adverse to its profit interests. I hope it is clear. And there is a lemons problem. Listen carefully. It's again a story. Lemons problem, Acker law, all that you can read. What happens is you have second-hand car market. What is your opinion about second-hand car market? Only substandard car. In US, it is known as lemon. Lemon is a substandard car, a poor quality car. So I believe that, okay, in the second-hand market, as I pass by, so many cars are kept for sale. I have a feeling that these cars are, less than average quality. So I will offer only a lower price for a second-hand car in the second-hand car market. Okay? And what will I do with the good car? And if I have a good car, I will not give it to the second-hand market to be sold, to be kept there for sale, because I will get only lower price. People think that second-hand car market is, poor quality car, and so they are willing to give only lower prices. I will give my car to my friends or relatives. All good cars will be withdrawn or kept away from the used car market. And so what will happen? Good cars will disappear and only poor quality lemons or car will remain. Okay? And so what happens is good quality cars driven away, or poor quality cars will drive out good quality cars. And what happens is, only, just like insurance company unhealthy people, only poor quality cars will be in the market. So adverse selection is over, adverse selection, right? Then, so this adverse selection is a situation before the transaction. Please note the distinction. Before the transaction. Before the transaction takes place, I have less information. And there is something that is taking place after the transaction, that is moral hazard. Please read the example first and then only read the theory. That is, one of your friends drive very rash, and you ask, why you are driving so rash? He says, I have a patented insurance, full coverage. A guy goes to the hospital very often, even for cough and cold, why? Because he has generous insurance coverage. A guy does not lock his house properly because he has a comprehensive theft insurance. Right? These are examples of moral hazard. That is, since the transaction, you are careless, the results of your careless actions, the loss can be transferred to the insurance company. There is an externality, isn't it? That is, your carelessness, the loss occurring because of your carelessness can be transferred to the insurance company pay. And so what happens is, my behavior has changed after the incident, after the transaction, that is after buying. So my behavior is so changed that I make the possibility of a loss, that is loss, more probable. I make losses by my adverse behavior, by my moral hazard. That is what is known as moral. So there is increasing probability of occurrence of loss because of my careless behavior, making the harmful consequences more possible. Again, you will ask me, why can't the insurance company, look for these behavior? Is it possible? No, it is not possible to walk around people, follow people and see how they are driving, because you have to employ people and cost will increase. And so moral hazard is in insurance is expected loss will be higher, and so what will happen? People have incentive to transfer the losses to the insurance company, and so that is about moral hazard. Please remember, adverse selection takes place before, moral hazard takes place after. And that takes us to, I think I should, since email IDs are there, I think I can always I can always send mail to your mail to the people who are right. Okay, that takes you to video buffering. Okay, network problem. I'm sorry. Then there's a doubt. Jay Krishna is asking me, live classes offered by ICAI are private goods or public goods? Okay, as it is free due to pandemic. It is a public good as far as you are concerned. It is a transaction between the teacher and the teacher. Transaction takes place, payment comes to the teacher, ICAI bears the cost, and benefit goes to third parties, that is students. Any student or anybody can get the benefit. It is not only CA student. So many people attend these classes and go to YouTube, and so it becomes a public good. Right? The benefits have a public good. Then I came to know about these classes today. National income chapter. Manpreet, no, national income is over. Video gets paused. I'm sorry. There is rain here. Public goods are market failures. Yes. Public goods are market failures because public goods will not be provided by the market. Okay. Then Gupta, moral hazard. Moral hazard is, how your behavior changes post transaction, and how this behavior of yours will make the probability of losses higher and cause loss to the other party, and the other party will suffer losses. A long time they suffer losses, the market will not function. Okay. Now that takes us to fiscal function. It is very easy actually. You have to just read. Now fiscal comes from the word fisc, etc. Many words in many languages. Fisc means the purse of the government. So fiscal functions is, what is the function of the government in respect of, managing its money? Okay, how should the government manage its money? So there are three elements. Fiscal functions is actually a continuation of market failure. Earlier, everybody thought markets work perfect, but markets fail. Markets fail because of inefficient allocation, which we have already finished learning. Inefficient allocation, market failure, too much of certain goods, too little of certain other goods. Overproduction of certain goods, underproduction of education. Whenever there is positive externality, education has to be provided. But private markets will not produce education. So it is not efficient allocation of resources. Secondly, inequality, fairness. Fairness is not in economics. It does not come from economics. It comes from ethics and other social sciences. Efficiency comes from microeconomics. Efficiency in distribution. Stability comes. Stability is, trade cycles you have done. Economies suffer from cyclical movements, ups and downs in economic activity. Here it is depression. Here it is boom. Sometimes the economy suffers from recession. Okay. So ups and downs of economic activity. That is macroeconomics. So these three things are functions of the state. Fiscal function is public finance function. That is for reducing market failure. So please note, market failure is the reason for government coming in. Otherwise, you can leave things to the market and be happy. But market does not do the best. Markets create instability. Markets create unfairness. You are in India. We know the inequality of distribution of income and wealth. Okay. Markets allocate resources in a different way than what is good for the society. So you can't leave things to the market alone. The government has to enter its fiscal functions. So it is Richard Musgrave. Adam Smith thought everything can be left to the market, but he said, that is a paragraph starting with Adam Smith, he said, government has to provide defense, government has to maintain law and order, government has to produce goods which are not produced by private markets for want of profit. For example, literacy for all. Will the private market provide literacy for all? Altruism, Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu, is not a market criterion. Market is not concerned about Samasta Loka Sukham. Okay, it is concerned only about private profit. So the government has to step in. And so Richard Musgrave's taxonomy classification. First role of the government is resource allocation for efficiency. Resource allocation for efficiency. Redistribution role, that is for ensuring fairness. Third one is macroeconomic stabilization. You cannot avoid these trade cycles, but you can ensure that the severity of the trade cycles is reduced. Now that COVID is there, we were almost going to face a recession. But what was the government doing? Reserve Bank always, the government announcing policies by which, production can be increased, more money can be put into the hands of the people, and, we can avoid inflation like that. And so, in the real world, resource allocation is not done by private parties alone. We cannot leave the resource allocation to private parties alone. It has to be done by government. Okay, we cannot produce on our own certain things. Right? We cannot buy certain things at a price. For example, police services, defense, fire protection, irrigation. Okay, irrigation. Then environmental quality. These are things which the government has to ensure. Private markets will not ensure. Okay. Then government, you have done the law of contract, isn't it? So government is ensuring that contracts are actually fulfilled. Government gives you ownership rights or property rights are protected by the government. Merit goods like education is provided by the government. It doesn't leave these things. Okay. So how does government do this? Government takes money from people and spends it on others. So when you put the budget, you can see the budget, government will decide who should be taxed, what should be taxed. Alcohol should be taxed more. Okay. What should not be taxed? Right? What type of taxation? Progressive taxation. Rich people should be taxed more. Poor people should be left out of tax. Right? You will be calculating taxes, but you learn the principle of taxes only in economics class. Right? And so they collect the tax and on whom they spend the revenue. Money will be spent on infrastructure so that production is more. Money will be spent on healthcare. Money will be spent on education. Money will be spent on research, right? Money will be spent, the total resources of the country, how it is to be spent. Expenditure policy, tax policy. That is fiscal function. Okay. How the society's resources should be allocated so that welfare is ensured. Right. So that is done by expenditure and tax policy of the government. Sometimes government produces goods. Yes, government is producing goods, isn't it? There are so many public sector undertakings which are producing goods. Sometimes the government discourages the production of certain things, alcoholic drinks. Sometimes the government gives subsidies to the production. For example, fertilizer subsidy. Government gives patent to some producers. Government regulates. Government increases price to increase the competition. So like that you can read, there are so many methods. Please note, application questions can come. So what you have to consider is, what is the government trying to achieve in doing this? Is it redistribution? Is it allocation? Or is it stabilization? You can look at the policy and decide. So allocation function is done by government in such a way that, the society's resources are allocated efficiently so that social welfare can be. If it is left to the market, overproduction of certain goods, underproduction of certain other goods. Overproduction of things which are profitable, underproduction of health, education. This is what happened in the US. Left to the market, private healthcare, left to the market, they underproduced certain things. Okay. The second one is redistribution. You leave everything to the market, the rich will become rich, the poor will become poor. I am sure you will not ask me what is wrong in rich becoming rich and the poor becoming poor. Definitely it is wrong because it is against social justice. It is against ethics. And so the government will make it, possible to have a more equal distribution of income. How is it done? Equity and fairness. Government will collect money and spend the money on people who are underprivileged so that they have some money in the pocket and so that they can also enjoy goods, demand goods and services. Don't you think it is good? Government collects taxes and spends it for people who are not able to buy goods and services in the market. Right. Then government gives, collects taxes and gives money to, monetary support to poor households. Some examples of these are given in your book. Say, for example, backward tribals, scheduled caste, scheduled tribes, unemployment, income for unemployed, widows' pensions, old age pensions, then special schemes for northeast, backward regions. Then families below poverty line, given, food subsidy, food support, subsidies for cooking gas, right? Then there is an argument, if you give everything to people, they will become lazy. It is true. Okay, efficiency will be affected. One major argument against what is happening in Kerala is, everything is given to the people. They get everything. They get foreign remittances. Government gave them kit every month. 1,000 rupees worth kit. Government gives all types of social security so that we don't have to work. That is why the wage levels in Kerala is very high, because people will work only when very high wages are offered. That is why migration of labor takes place in Kerala, right? So efficiency cost is there. So the government should be very careful not to feed people, because it will act as a disincentive to work. And so a proper policy balancing efficiency and equity. Then the third one is stabilization function. That is bringing in stability. You cannot have 100% stability like this. No economy will experience this type of growth. But economies which experience this type of growth, it is very, very painful for people to go through this. And so governments try to reduce the severity of stabilization. That is what we study under in the chapter fiscal policy. In the next class, we will be okay. So deliberate stabilization policy. Now this depression, recession, etc. is worldwide phenomenon. The virus from China spread in no time to other countries. If there is a recession in the US, it will come to India very fast, because we have international trade, capital movements, okay, because of the high openness and connectivity. We call it contagion effect. That is, the problems in one place getting transmitted so easily into another place. That is contagion effect. So, what the stabilization policy, government is watching what? You have done Keynesian theory, whether there is unemployment. You have done national income, whether national income is growing or not. You know what is inflation. Government is always looking at the inflation figures, isn't it? Our Reserve Bank of India's monetary policy is inflation targeting. So government is looking at national income, government is looking at prices, government is looking at employment, government is looking at economic growth, government is looking at industrial output, looking at balance of payments. So the government is concerned about so many macroeconomic variables, and the government has two policies. One is monetary policy and the other is fiscal policy. These are two units which you will be studying. That is what I said, fiscal function is easy, because whenever there is inflation, please remember there are only 2 points you need to remember in monetary policy and fiscal policy. During recession, put more money into the pockets of people. Somehow make available money to the people, make money available to the people during recession, because they don't have money during recession. During inflation, take away money from the people. Take away money. Take away their spending capacity. During recession, put money into the pockets of people so that they have money to spend, increase their spending capacity. Since you have done Keynesian theory, you might have done. It is about calculation. Anyway, I don't agree with economics being calculation of average propensity to save, marginal propensity to save. Please do not misunderstand economics as calculation of MPC. You know, the dire theory has to be done. You should understand what did Keynes do? What did Keynes contribute, towards the theory of business cycle, towards the theory of stabilization? And so sometimes governments fail. That is the last point. It is not that government is all knowing. Government is also made up of people, isn't it? And so whenever there is a market failure, the government will intervene to solve the market failure. Sometimes we find government creating more problems than market. That is, we only hope, we hope that the government stayed away from intervening, because government creates more problem, or the cost of intervention, money cost of intervention, or the difficulty of intervention is so high that market would have been better. That is known as government failure. That is, whenever there is a market failure, the government interferes and makes the problem worse. We could leave it to the market would have done it better. Today, an article I saw, that is how private sector was not supported by government in the COVID vaccine production. The article is trying to say that it is a government failure, which I do not believe. Right. So government failure is because of intervention in the market. The government makes the problem worse, because government also suffers from asymmetric information, inadequate information, and government can do things only in a very costly way. Right. And political interests are not always human welfare interests. People have private interests. Governments are not unbiased. Governments are biased. Okay. And so what happens is government will create the problem. So just tell you finally, market failure is the reason for government intervention. Okay. That is what we are going to learn tomorrow. Market failure is the reason for, the day after tomorrow, market failure is the reason for government intervention, and we will see how government intervenes when the market fails. So the last topic we studied is government failure. That is, because of interference of the government, things became worse, and that is government failure. Government failure is because reasons. One question can be asked. I wish you go home and read the lessons and go through the question bank. If you can answer all the questions, you're not reading. Usually, nobody asks questions beyond the text. That is what I have found out. All these exams from 2017 onwards, always well within the text. Right? And so please go through the question bank and go through the questions and answers given at the end of the textbook, because there are limits to which what type of questions can be asked. So do well. Thank you for your patient listening. I will check that. Ma'am, public goods market. Okay. Public goods of all types are market failure. Right. Public goods and impure public goods, of course, market failure. But in the case of impure public goods, markets can do something. Since they are partially excludable, markets out of profit might be able to provide some impure public goods. Quasi-public goods are provided by the market, but its outcome is a public good. Okay. Next one, moral hazard, I have already explained. Yeah. Next, Tanushree is asking me, is fiscal function new module? Yes. I was supposed to take two units today. One is first one, chapter 2, first unit is fiscal function, second unit is market failure. But I started with market failure because fiscal function is the outcome of, exactly the wording in fiscal function, sorry, market failure, you will find in fiscal function also. Understanding market failure will make fiscal function very simple. So fiscal function is an easy unit. So please make it a point that you have attended the class. Please make it a point to read a number of times. You have to get used to the language. Yes, one problem I want to bring it to your notice is, you cannot use your own language for writing economics. Economics has a particular language of its own, jargon of its own. Externality is externality, non-rival is non-rival, non-excludable is non-excludable, free-riding, asymmetric inflation, adverse selection. All these are terms in economics which you have to use as it is. So that is why you keep track with the jargons in economics, and you speak the language of economics when you write the answers. That is one big problem throughout my teaching. I have found chartered accountancy students, they try to write in your own language, so you get lost with the the language of economics. So people who value your paper want to be speaking the right terms. I said increase in demand curve shifting to the right. Increase in demand because there was an advertisement of N95, not because price changed. When there is price change, quantity changes. Somebody has asked that down. When there is price change, quantity changes. But because when there is a change in demand due to factors other than things. So there is an advertisement about N95 mask. Okay, price was only 25 rupees. When there is an advertisement, people demand more number of masks at that price. That is the meaning of increase in demand. The demand curve has shifted to the right. Okay, supply remaining the same. What happened? The new demand curve intersecting the supply curve, price rises to 50 rupees. You have to use the right terms. Increase in demand, not quantity. That's why I said the language of economics is important. You have to use the right. Anyway, economics is not a formidable subject. Anyway, it has got a lot of depth. But please try to understand each and every paragraph and write, in the textbook itself, the contents of that paragraph. Okay, what is written in this paragraph? You write in the margin. On the day of the examination, morning, quickly go through what is written in the margin. Because otherwise, everything you have learned, but you have to just remember. Okay, lots and lots of concepts are included in the textbook. So each concept, be clear about the concept. Okay, thank you so much for your patient listening, and wish you good learning and happy Vishu, because Vishu is coming. Right. Thank you so much. I'm really proud to be here teaching the CA students because I feel that I've studied here, taught in university, I've taught in different places. I said for the past so many years, but teaching CA has always been a privilege. Thank you so much and good night. Thank you. Pardon? Our session concluded. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Ramji. Thank you.